in many, many years to come, Bezrat Hashem. In Abotai, this week, we think that we have to sit down and really try to take in mind certain things that we are reading and going through. In Abotai, last week we tried to express a little bit about the month of Adar and how the month of Adar as a whole is a month of essentially beginning of a new direction, the new starts. And we spoke about it in length. That was somewhat some sort of summation of the month of Adar. But this week, Abotai, I would like to take more of the occurrences that we are reading throughout the month of Adar and are dependent on the month of Adar and try to make sense out of them. Whoever keeps track will see that in the last few weeks and in the weeks to follow, we're going to be adding certain portions to our weekly Torah reading. Such as 2 weeks ago we read Parashat Shekalim, the Golden Calf. Bezrat Hashem soon we're going to read Parashat Zachor, and we're going to read Parashat Chodesh. We're adding little portions that talk about completely different or random things to our weekly reading. And what's more incredible is that these readings are not just readings that are dependent on the time of the year, but being readings that are dependent on the month of Adar. One reading being the Shabbat before Adar, one reading being the Shabbat before Purim, etc., etc. So last week we sat down and we said, now that we are really starting the month of Adar again, for the second time, and this month of Adar is a month of Adar which is really plentiful of brachot that we cannot achieve in any month of the entire year, how can we come forward and really make sense of all what we read on the month of Adar and all these additive things to the month, to the holiday, and really come to a place of being positioned properly the way Chazal wanted us to be positioned? In what manner? We've explained many times in our shiurim that the reason that we read certain things actually have a purpose to it. We don't just go through parashot and go through certain psukim and go through certain prayers for no reason at all. Chazal very meticulously put them in place in order that when we read or when we go through that teaching or that reading or that prayer or whatever that is, it will position us for that time of the year. Just to give an example, every year, Parashat Beshalach, the week of Parashat Beshalach, we read the Parashat Haman, the reading of the man. And every single year we say, the whole concept of the reading of the man is not that within the reading there is some sort of a secret or some sort of a code that you mention with your lips and that goes to Shamayim and that makes you very, very wealthy. No. The whole concept of the reading was our sages putting that teaching in order for us to be in the mindset of our panasa comes from Akadosh Baruch Hu. So whatever we add to our daily prayer needs to have very big significance to that time. So I would like Bezrat Hashem this week to sit down and try to put everything together and to understand what Chazal wanted from us. And if we understand what Chazal wanted from us, we don't even need the readings necessarily to understand how to position ourselves to be the most proper keli, the most proper vessel to receive the brachot that this month has to offer. So Bezrat Hashem Abotai, we're going to try to put all these different subjects together and hopefully we will have questions in the end trying to tie them all together. Before we enter into this greater picture of the month of Adar, I would like to try to start to build an idea on something that every year we asked with regards to Purim. We know about Purim, like what we can say, it's a classic story of an enemy that came forward and they tried to bring decrees and tried to bring problems upon Am Yisrael. The difference is that the way that our sages acted with this decree is completely different from what happened with the Romans or in the Greeks, etc. When the Romans came along, when the Greeks came along, they tried to bring a decree upon Am Yisrael. The leaders of Am Yisrael actually took a step back and made themselves further from those groups of people. But we see in this holiday of Purim, that Mordechai and Esther, the leaders of Am Yisrael, actually do something completely opposite, which is what? They come close. Esther gets married to Achashverosh. Mordechai tries to become like the advisor of Achashverosh. how does all this make sense? How come Mordechai and Esther took such a different approach on canceling this gzerot, while all the other Chazal completely ran away from it? So in order to understand this, there's a beautiful pasuk that we mentioned in the last few weeks that we think can really be an opening of really understanding the purpose of ourselves in our world, and ourselves especially right now. There's the pasuk that it said about all man, about Adam, about Yaakov specifically, but it was applied upon all man, that is very unique. It says man is a unique creation because Raglav mutzav arza verosho megia shamayma. What does that mean? The Torah was trying to teach us a lesson about how we are built, how we function. So Torah says, what makes man unique is the fact that his feet are buried in the ground, meaning we stand in the ground, we derive our existence, the fact that we are on this world, but our head is completely in the sky. And we always asked ourselves, what does that mean in actual practical understanding of our feet are on the ground and our head is in the sky? What was the Torah trying to teach us by telling us that our head, it's not where our feet are, it's not on the ground, but it's actually at the highest level of the sky? And how does that apply to us, being such a big statement, trying to explain to us how we function? So in order to understand this, we need to look at the world before we put into the picture. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, He created it with a very, very unique order. In the beginning, He set up the sky, the ground, the gravity, you can call it, the planet itself. And then He separated the water between the dirt. Then He added trees and rocks. In other words, created some sort of environment of life. And once the world was set up for holding life and giving all what life needs to exist, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created animals. And from here, the Zohar HaKadosh teaches us what the essence of the difference between man and between all the other creation that exists. Being what? Being that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created all the animals, He created them with a world that is perfect for them. Where the animal is born, near where his food is, he's born near where his water is, and the world is set for him essentially. He doesn't need to do anything. And this is where the Zohar HaKadosh learned this concept, where the animal, if there was some sort of aspect where he sees the world in, the Zohar HaKadosh said the animal sees the world with the aspect of his head downwards. Being what? That the animal doesn't inspire to build, to change, to greaten, to do. The animal is essentially completely unmotivated from the reality that he doesn't need to do anything for his life to be in an optimal place. The animal is born with the food growing next to him, with the water that streams through the rivers. What more does he need? An animal in its essence, his whole living is with his head pointing downwards, looking for leaves, looking for weeds, looking for what food he can find, to eat in the moment, goes to sleep, and wakes up and lives in the world Hashem created for him. Zohar HaKadosh says, man is the exact opposite. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, He didn't just create him to just exist in his environment in zero. We mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created man, He had a very specific goal in mind. And that goal being what? That goal being man build the world. Greaten the world. We even see that the first word that Hashem tells Adam HaRishon was what? Pu Urvu. What does Pu Urvu mean? You could understand it in its simple translation, which Pu Urvu means to bring children. That's as a message that we learned it. But in simple words, Pu means bring fruit, like a peri, and Urbu is fill it. Arizal explained, this is what is this concept of Pu Urvu? Not just to bring children, but very simple. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a world which was tohu vavohu, an empty world, fill it. Build within it. Develop it. Make it grow. Leave the world in a bigger place than when it was when you were born. We even mentioned that was the purpose of the neshama being attached to the body. Zohar HaKadosh said, and we explained this in the past, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created all the worlds, He saw that it was a great world, but there was a big flaw to them. They were beautiful, each one in its own manner, but there was no ability of growth. There was no ability of freedom. there was no ability of allowing Hashem's worlds that He created, which were His prized possessions, grow into something bigger than what He left it at. So Zohar HaKadosh said. So what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He created Adam. And Adam, being very unique, that he shares this aspect of Hashem, of the desire of growth. Hashem created this world for growth. He created us the way He created us to make the world grow and develop into something much bigger. Zohar HaKadosh says that is the trait that we hold of shape of God, image of God. Not that we look like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or that we share the same body shape or whatever it is. But we have that trait of creators. And a creator in his essence, he looks at what he has and he says, what can I create more out of this? How can I take what exists and develop it into something which is much greater? Maybe we can say that that is the translation of what the Torah mentions. Man, his feet are in the ground, but his head is what? It's in the sky. What does that mean? It means that the man, in his essence of his core, he doesn't live his life looking downwards. A man looks at his life and he looks up, sees what he could achieve, what he can strive to grow into, what he could conquer, what he could bring within his life, what he can change within the world. A man in his natural creation is always holding the hunger of looking to the skies, looking at how far he can reach, to where he can go, what he could achieve, what he could change. That is the essence of man. Or in the wording of the Zohar HaKadosh, Rosho kafuf mana. The animal's head looks down always to see what's existing. Man's head needs to be always pointed where? Upwards. Or in other words, looking of what he could achieve within the world. And the key is to understanding that that is our job. That our job is not just to come to the world the way the world is and to leave this world the way we received it. Our job was always to be ambition. To have that ambition, to be ambitious, to want to grow, to want to change, to want to be better than what exists. Maybe we can say that that's actually a big reason of how when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings us to this world, He does very, very strange things. We probably all heard this concept that it's mentioned in the Midrash and in many Gemarot, that whenever we were all in the stomach of our mothers, an angel comes to each and every one of us. And what does the angel do? He teaches us Torah, and he teaches us all the Torah. Meaning every single book you can find in any Jewish bookshelf, Midrash and our sages teach us that it all gets taught to each and every one of us. But at the 9th month, right when we are ready to leave and to enter into this world, the Midrash, the Zohar, it said the angel comes and hits us right under the nose. And that is that dent that we see right under our nose. And the moment that the angel hits us, Chazal say, we forget all our teaching. So we always ask, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is usually very practical. He usually does things with a reason. He doesn't just do things out of being weird, chas v'shalom. Everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does has a purpose, has a reason, has a place in the world, has some sort of importance in the world. There's a reason for it to exist in the first place. So how come HaKadosh Baruch Hu would send an angel to teach us Torah, to make us forget it? What's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of throughout 9 months having one angel be so busy of wasting his time teaching us Torah, only for us to forget it and to move on and act like we were never taught that Torah at all? What was the purpose of this? Maybe we can say that the reason of the angel teaching us Torah wasn't about us remembering that information. It wasn't about us holding that information. It was about leaving the impression and leaving the feeling of this idea that we could achieve to the sky. That we can come to the point and look at the biggest big bookshelves that exist in the world and say that I had that. That my abilities and my capability is much greater than what I know of. Maybe we can say the whole purpose of teaching each and every one of us the world of knowledge was to imprint and to indent within us that we are greater than what we think we are. And we have the ability to make more change than what we give ourselves credit for. And that feeling, even though the information is no longer present, but that feeling sticks with us. When a person succeeds and achieves something, even if he lost what he achieved, he has that energy and that ability that he can do it once more, that he can do it once again. The feeling of being at the top, even when a person reaches to the bottom, sticks with him for eternity. Maybe we can say that the whole concept of the angel teaching us that information is just for us to remember and to hold within our hearts that we could reach to at the highest most of achieving spirituality, of achieving anything, of growth. Maybe we can say that essentially is the purpose of man, period. We come to this world to take the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, and it is our obligation and it is our duty to not be lazy, to be ambitious, and to take that world and to give it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at a much better state than it was right beforehand. That is our job. That is why we were created. Ambition is not just something that should be given praise for being a very, very good trait and character in society. Ambition in its essence is a trait that what makes us the sons of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maybe we can say that from here, knowing the purpose of man, we can see also where man failed. We can see where man sinned. Abotai, when we look at the first sin of Adam HaRishon, it's very unique. We see that the snake came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Moshe, to Adam HaRishon, and told Adam, there's a tree down in the earth, eat from the tree, it tastes good, and Adam went, ate from the tree, and the world got destroyed, and Adam got punished, and we got sent to years upon years of exile. Always this concept, this story of Adam, it amuses us. How can such a silly thing cause so much damage? So we said maybe we can say that according to what we just mentioned, we can understand exactly the severity and the reason of the destruction. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Adam, his head was where? It was in the sky. He was in Gan Eden. His consciousness wasn't present within this world. We say Adam was in the garden. He was in complete Gan Eden. His consciousness, his view of how the world should be, had nothing to do with how the ground is. Adam's whole sight of knowledge, of consciousness was completely existing by Elohim, above. When he looked at the world, he saw how he can change the world. He saw how he can develop the world. He saw how he can help the neshamot. He saw how his place is so prominent and so important and so big within the higher world. Maybe we could say the sin of Adam HaRishon was that even though Hashem put him at the highest place where he saw his potential and he saw his growth and he saw what he's capable, still he was able to look down. In what sense? In the sense, the snake came to him. He told him, Adam, down there on the dirt pile of earth, there's a tree that's growing on the ground. And this tree has fruit on it. Put aside the reasoning of why he told him to eat, to become a Kadosh Baruch Hu, to become a God, to become a big leader, that the tree would give him extra strength, whatever it was. We're not going to get into it. The snake tells Adam, that tree will give you some joy right now. Eat from it. Adam HaRishon, instead of looking and seeing what he's capable of his actions, of his hands, of building worlds, turns his focus and goes and keeps himself busy with what? With something that will give him joy for one moment and not help grow anything. Maybe we can say the sin of Adam HaRishon was, even though he was born with his head at the highest level of above, still the snake was able to trick him to do what? To look down, to see what grows on the earth, to see what grows from the dirt, and to stay busy with what grows in the dirt versus what he can plant and versus what he could develop of this world. Maybe we can say that the sin of Adam wasn't necessarily that he ate from the tree. It was from the fact that he completely ignored his purpose, which was growing the world, and kept himself busy with an animalistic act of looking down for sustenance, of looking down for guidance, of looking down for deeds that will keep him busy instead of growing the world. And the punishment of Adam makes perfect sense. We see that what was the punishment that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Adam? He told him, Bezzeh atapecha Tocha lachem. What does that mean? With the toiling of your hard work in the fields, you will eat. You will be able to derive sustenance for yourself. What was really that punishment? He said, maybe we can say that punishment was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Adam, Adam, I put you in the sky and you still chose the dirt. If you so deliberately chose to look down and to keep yourself busy with what grows from the dirt, then continue. Keep yourself busy. Go work the fields. Go toil long days in the sun and in the cold to work the fields, to keep yourself busy in action and deeds that don't necessarily help you flourish in the long term, but just give you sustenance in the short term, like what you chose. Adam's sin was, instead of keeping his energy and keeping his intention of looking up and making the world into a much greater place, he chose to look down, he chose to give himself sustenance for the short term. We can even see that the snake, his punishment was equally in that same line of the idea, which was what? The snake made Adam HaRishon look down. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did what to the snake? Cut off his arms, cut off his legs, put his face on the dirt, and he told him, anything you will eat will taste like what? Will taste like dirt, will taste the same. What was the reason of this punishment? Like we mentioned many places, that the reason of this punishment was one thing. The reason was to cause that the snake never looks up. That at any given moment where the snake looks right, looks left, regardless of whatever he will see, he will be able to eat it, and it will taste the exact same. The punishment of the snake in its essence was, you caused my creation that was supposed to keep the world in an upwards momentum of growth, you caused them to look down, you will look down too for the rest of your life. And that is the challenge of man. A lot of the time, Rabotai, we see that we receive tests that in their essence, their job is to keep us busy from looking at the bigger picture, from looking at long-term growth, long-term success, whether if it's in this world, whether if it's just simply in the future, whether it's whatever it is. The evil inclination in every generation, in every shape or form, will always fight not to pull us down or not to make us sin, just to keep us from looking up. Just to keep us busy in something which is a nonsense that will burn our time, in something that will not help us grow at all in the long term, but just to stop us from looking at our world and seeing how we can better it, seeing how we can make it grow, seeing how we can make it into a better place. And this is something that stems from even the first enemies that Bnei Israel had. We know, Abotai, that as a nation, our first enemy was who? Paro. We're going to read about him soon in Pesach, a whole month just about talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim and Paro. Our first enemy of a nation was this Paro, that he very clearly had his intentions on making Bnei Israel what? Making Bnei Israel slaves. Why? So he can build triangles? So he can build these 3 triangles? And guess what was the purpose behind it? So Arizal says, and Rabbi Moshe Pinto and Zohar Kadosh says, that Paro, he was simple. He was the Nachash. He was the snake. Many books, they translate that Paro was the snake, that he had the neshama somewhat of a snake, which is very questionable once we try to understand how the neshamot work, so we're not going to use that explanation. But very common nomination in many different teachings, that Paro was Nachash HaKadmon. He was the snake that made Adam fall. So he said, if Adam fell with the snake for certain reasons, and Paro is this symbol of the snake, Paro must have had a reason why he caused Bnei Yisrael to be slaves. So what was it? So we said, maybe we can say, what is a slave? What is a slave? A slave is someone with no ambition. A slave is someone with no desire of growth. A slave is someone with no desire to change, to free himself from his troubles, to come to a place of a stronger reality, a more happy reality. Why is that? Because the slave knows that whatever he will work, whatever he will do, it will not be his. So the slave keeps his head down, keeps himself busy with whatever is in front of him, whatever he's told to do in that moment, and lived his life like that. It sounds very familiar. This is like the life of who? The life of who, Rabotai? The animals. Animals were born, like we said in the wording of the Zohar, Rosho kafuv mata. Their heads, they're looking down, whatever's in front of them, and not even thinking about growth and about changing and about forming ourselves in our world to something much better. Paro's intentions of keeping Bnei Israel under slavery were very, very precise for keeping Bnei Israel with their heads looking where? Looking downwards, with no ambition of growth, with no desire to become something bigger and better than what they were when they were created. You see that the Geulah, the redemption, is a man that represents the exact opposite of it. The Geulah came from who? From Moshe Rabbeinu. Why Moshe Rabbeinu? Why specifically Moshe Rabbeinu had a gift that was able to inspire Bnei Israel? No other leader was able to. And many tried. The Torah doesn't talk about them. But the Midrash said that hundreds of people got up and tried to release Bnei Israel from their slavery. But Moshe had something unique. What did Moshe have? So maybe we can say that we know that Moshe represents what? Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam. Moshe represents Netzach. What does Netzach mean? Netzach and the Sfirot, we know what it's. Sfirot, it's the right leg. But Netzach, even in simple translation of Hebrew, means what? Victory. What is victory? Victory is this idea of somebody being in the bottom and having the ability to reach to what? To the top. That is what victory is. And this explains why the Zohar Kadosh said that Moshe represented the man that reaches to the sky. Being that was his essence. His essence was the ability of man reaching the sky. And we see that even Moshe Rabbeinu laid down his life, went up to the sky and fought with angels, and we'll actually come back to this in a moment. This concept of Moshe, his gift was that he held this ability to inspire other ones just to do what? To hold this thought of being able to reach to the top. Being able to grow. Being able to develop. Being able to take our world and to change it. And it's something that even Batya saw. In Abutai, every week when we read the parashat of the Shemot and the Bo, and we see the story of Batya found Moshe. It's very unique. It says Batya, when she saw Moshe as a child floating on the river, she looked and he was very, very far. But the Torah says that what did she do? She reached her hand out. And the Torah said there was a miracle that her hand became long. And her hand extended to the point where she was able to reach Moshe. So all he said was, Batya drinking that night. She sees Moshe Rabbeinu 100 feet away and you reach your hand to grab it. That's something that maybe you would say a drunk person sees, look, I'm going to grab that book there. Why would she reach her hand from the first place if she knew that she couldn't reach? So maybe we could say that Moshe, his essence, it was like a smell that everyone around him was able to smell. And that essence being what? Being potential, being ambition, being even that they know that the sky seems far, they still reached out to try grabbing it. But yet, even when she saw Moshe Rabbeinu as a child, she was able to feel that feeling of what? Of our capability is in the sky. The power that we have and what we can reach and what we can do is at level that we could never even imagine that our hands can reach. That is Moshe Rabbeinu. Being that that's Moshe Rabbeinu, we could imagine that Yetzer Hara, in his essence, will try to fight that idea, will try to fight that concept. And here we can start to attach and to put into this puzzle of certain things that we're reading. We see right after Yetziat Mitzrayim, Bnei Israel get attacked by a nation. What was this nation that attacked them? Who were they? Amalek. Amalek, the Midrash says that they weren't even a nation. They were a group of settlers in the desert that decided they're going to go to war against Am Yisrael. They knew they were going to die. They knew they were suiciding. So why did they fight? So based off this, maybe we can say that Amalek, which in many places in the Zohar it says Amalek is like the snake, its job wasn't even trying to kill Bnei Israel, to inflict harm upon Bnei Israel. Its job was just to bring Bnei Israel's eyes from looking up to looking down. We know right after Kat Yam Suf it says, "Ra'ata shifcha al hayam acher lo ra'a Yechezkel belbuzi ben mareh merkava." What a slave saw when she looked up in the tearing of the sea. Even the greatest prophets were not able to visualize in the highest level of prophecy. Bnei Israel, even all the other nations, they saw, when they looked up, they saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They knew that Bnei Israel's place is in the sky. It's at a much higher place. It's not in this world. Amalek's mission and their intention was just to cause us to look down. Just to cause us to be distracted, to be busy with something that is just surviving right now versus growing and achieving and building and being something much greater. That was their goal. And we can see how Moshe Rabbeinu fought Amalek was exactly that concept. How did Moshe Rabbeinu win the fight of Amalek? Who can tell us? Moshe would look up to the sky with his hands towards Shamayim. As long as he was looking up, Bnei Israel were winning. Once he started to look down because he was getting tired and his hands got heavy, what happened? Amalek was winning. What is this concept? The concept that the fight of Amalek wasn't killing Bnei Israel, it was just causing them to look down. And the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu kept his eyes up, the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu kept Bnei Israel's attention towards growth, towards potential, towards the sky, Amalek were falling left and right because their mission, their goal was falling with it. We have to understand that our job in this world is to be ambitious, to desire more than we think our hands can hold. And the more we keep our eyes up towards the sky and wanting to grow and wanting to achieve and wanting to be better, that's when our enemies fall without even fighting the war at all. We say even that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was giving Bnei Israel Torah, it says that all the angels, they came and they fought Moshe Rabbeinu. It says that when they were fighting Moshe Rabbeinu was told by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "Echos bekisei kevodi v'teh lahem tshuva." He told Moshe, because Moshe was afraid, the Zohar HaKadosh said that he fainted and he fell, he wanted to escape, and Hashem, we're not going to get into that right now. So Hashem told him, Moshe Rabbeinu, don't worry. Hold on to my chair, grab my chair, and answer them. And the Gemara says there that Moshe grabbed onto his chair, and the moment HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu held on to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chair, all the angels backed off. So he said, why hold on to the chair? What, he was getting electrocuted, charged? What? No, there must be a reason. Nothing happens there's no gimmicks with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything needs to be for practicality. What was this idea? So he said, maybe we can say that, like it's mentioned in Zohar HaKadosh in Parashat Noach, that the structure of Shamayim is at the highest point is what? Kisei HaKavod, the chair of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That at the level of the chair of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, no creation sit. And you can imagine it's like when you enter into a king's throne. When you enter into a king's chambers, you see that there's the guards around them. Then there are steps that lead highwards to the highest point of the room. And at the highest point of the room sits the king. And no one sits at the level of the king. No one stands at the level of the king. Because that's what the king is, at the highest place. Zohar HaKadosh says that there's no creations where the chair of HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits. The chair of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is empty. It's just Hashem sits there. No angel can reach it. No neshama can touch it. Nothing. Maybe we can say that when the angels were fighting to keep the Torah up and to not let it come down, Hashem told Moshe, reach your hand to the sky, reach your hand to the highest place that exists, which is Kisei HaKavod, and prove to them that you can touch there. That you can even reach there from the first hand. What was HaKadosh Baruch Hu's advice to Moshe Rabbeinu? Show the angel that even if you are in a lower place right now, your ability is to reach to places that even the angels can't reach. And that's what's fended off the angels. They said, look, even though that maybe he's a Ben Ishan, like what it says in the Gemara, that the angel said it's a son of a woman that is standing amongst us. Even though that Moshe Rabbeinu was at a low place at that time, he proved to the angels that his capabilities are reaching out to the highest places possible. Even if he doesn't even know that. Our gift as humans, as Bnei Adam, as Bnei Israel, is that we have capabilities that we cannot even imagine. We even said, maybe we can say that's why the Torah was given on a mountain. We always, why Torah needs to be given on a mountain? It couldn't be given in a shul. It couldn't be given on a table. Why on a mountain? What was the reason for a mountain? What was the reason of doing this sort of like a gimmick of giving the Torah on a hill? What's the point of it? So maybe we can say that its essence, first of all, was to cause Bnei Yisrael to do what? To do what? To look up. That's number one. That their intention is to be clear, that their eyes need to be facing Shamayim. But second of all, to show them, even though the sky looks so far, and looks so out of reach, with the hill, you can climb to reach it. There's an ability, there's a way you can reach to the top. You just need to understand that you're capable of, and you just need to want to reach to the top. And if you will want to reach to the top, you can reach to the sky. It's all a matter of climbing. Even though the sky seems far, even though succeeding at the highest levels of whatever it could be, Panasha, Tzlacha, Torah, Zivug, Simcha, whatever it is, even though it can seem so far, our capabilities are so much more than we think. We can reach to places that even angels can't reach. That is our job, to remember that and to act upon that thought. That we were created to be ambitious. We were created to have a hunger for more. And that's in our nature. In our nature, we're not supposed to keep our eyes down seeing what exists already. That's the essence of our teva. And like we mentioned, at every point, at every individual's life, at every situation of his life, there would be a force pulling him to look otherwise. We can look at Har Sinai as an example. Moshe Rabbeinu was 6 hours late. The evil inclination caused him to do what? Bnei Yisrael said, one other leader. Who is the second leader? What leader did they want? What did Bnei Yisrael do? They built the golden calf. So what is this golden calf? So maybe we can say that Bnei Yisrael, they wanted a leader. But that wasn't the problem. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was late. They really thought he was dead. So it's normal, it's natural to look for a leader. The problem was that there was Aaron, there was Yoshua, there was the Zekenim. There was real tzaddikim that held as well this trait of being a man that can reach to the sky. But still, the leadership that they chose was the leadership of what? An animal. A cow. What does a cow do? What's a cow's nature? We mentioned, what aspect does a cow see the world? With his head looking downwards. The leadership that they chose was the problem. The leadership that they chose wasn't a leadership of what man is created for, to look up, to be ambitious and to climb, to grow. The leadership that they chose is a leadership of like an animal. And his eyes, the head, pointed at the lowest place possible, just to see what existed, to not even have in mind what could be achieved or what could essentially be created. We see this concept really coming to fruition with the korbanot. How Yitzhak pulls us to be like an animal, and we need to pull it to be like an Adam. Yitzhak pulls us to keep our head down. We need to pull ourselves to look up. When a man would sin, we know famously, whenever the Bet HaMikdash was existing, the man would come forward, bring an animal, a sheep, a cow, whatever type of sacrifice it was, and he would sacrifice it. So we always ask, why does Hashem like meat so much? Hashem loves meat. All of these sacrifices, for what? For what? What was the purpose behind it? Nobody really asked this question. Why a sacrifice of animal? Why not a sacrifice like what existed before all sin, which was fruit, like what Cain and Hevel gave? It was fruit, it had nothing to do with animals. So why animals? Maybe we could say the essence of reparation of the sin was what? It was taking the animal, which is down on the earth, saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I want this animal to no longer be in the earth, but to be where? To be in the sky. And that's why it said that whenever they would burn the sacrifices, when the smoke would go up, there would be like certain shapes, like a lion, and like certain different things to understand if the sacrifice was accepted. The whole concept of the sacrifice was proving that what? That the man leaves the path of the animal, which is head looking down, and starts looking at the path of what? Of Adam, of keeping his head high. And that's what would occur when they would burn the sacrifice. He would look up and see the smoke ascending with it. And with that ascending of the animal, so too is the man's understanding of what perspective he was created for, which was the perspective of keeping our intention, our conscious, looking always upwards, towards growth, towards Akadosh Baruch Hu, towards reaching higher where we were yesterday. Maybe we can say that is how Egel Hazav, the golden calf that we read 2 weeks ago, Zachor, Amalek that we read, that we're going to read soon, and all the other parashas that we are reading, are all come together in a complete harmony way to Purim. How to Purim? We know that Aman was who? He was Zera, Amalek. What is Zera, Amalek? The children of Amalek, the child of Amalek. So, if he came from Amalek, maybe he has some sort of similarity in the way that he thinks. So we can see that in a very simple manner. But all the other enemies that came after us, the first thing that they did was what? They said, first of all, we're going to kill their spirituality, kill their Torah, make them not able to keep Shabbat, to put tefillin. And then that's already enough. What that caused us to do is it caused us to desire to look up even more. It caused us a desire to want to keep more Torah and more mitzvot. That man was smart. He said, I don't need to cancel the mitzvot. Let them continue to study Torah, to congregate, to learn, to teach. That's fine. But I need to cause them to look down. I need to cause them to be worried of just Chayei HaSha'a, which if we were to translate that, it would be the needs of the hour, which are very, very just to survive, and not necessarily looking towards growth afterwards. Aman said, if I want to destroy Bnei Israel, I have to destroy the gift and the power that they hold, which is the ability to look to the sky and to have the ambition to chase after it. So Aman said, very simple. I will do like what my ancestors did, which was what? I will bring a gzera to make them to fight for their life. And I'll keep that fight dragging for a long period of time. He could have just told Achashverosh, send out a letter, start killing them now. He didn't do that. Give a date far ahead. And he let Bnei Israel sit with this date, that this date is the end. That pressure, that fear, that distraction didn't have them looking towards building a future. It had them towards looking what? Looking downwards, looking at Chayei HaSha'a. Like the animal, that instead of looking to gather food for a week ahead, he looks what he needs to eat right now, then to go to sleep, and tomorrow to repeat it. The goal of Aman was always just to cause us to forget the ability and to lose our ambition, to lose koach hasheifa, to lose this power that we have, this desire of growing and becoming bigger and becoming stronger and reaching to a geula, reaching to a redemption. That's what Haman was chasing after. Maybe we can say, now we understand what Mordechai and Esther were doing, coming close to the king. So we know that within the Megillah, there's no name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No name. What there is that there is, every time it's mentioned HaMelech, which is the king, it's referring to who? Referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we learn this from a beautiful Zohar that said that Achashverosh sat on the throne of Shlomo, which we know that the throne of Shlomo was Kisei HaKavod. That's a big teaching that we did one time, that Shlomo Melech, he sat on Hashem's throne for 40 years. So, Zohar Kadosh said that Achashverosh sat on the throne of Shlomo, being Hashem's throne. How is that possible? It was like a good hint of teaching us that any time it's mentioned HaMelech, the king, it's actually referring not to Achashverosh, the one that Esther and Mordechai were trying to come close to, but referring to who? Referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a beautiful analogy that we don't really understand so much. So if we're saying a mistake, please correct us. That one of the Admorim of of the Hasidim they gave, and this really can summarize this idea very, very well. And the job of each individual is to act like the small piece in chess. What's chess? There is the tiny pieces that their job is to do what? To climb and to reach to the king. And once they reach to the king, what happens to their small piece? It turns into what? What does it turn into?
Coin.
It turns into what?
A coin.
No, into what? Michiel, I don't hear you say.
A queen.
A queen. So the small soldier, once he gets in close contact with the king, he no longer stays a soldier, but he becomes what? A queen. In other words, a piece of the king. A big aspect of the king. A representative of the king. Maybe we can say that Mordechai and Esther's desire to come close to Hamelech, to the king, wasn't talking about Chashverosh at all. It was referring to what? To this idea of Haman wants us to look down and we're going to reach up. Haman wants us to go as far as possible from the king. We're going to go as close as possible to the king we can. And if we will reach to the point where we're very, very close one to another with the king, we will no longer stay. What's the name of the small piece?
Pawn.
A pawn, but will we turn into what? We'll turn into kingdomship ourselves. Like what Esther did. Esther became a queen. And that's why we consider Esther to be like an aspect of the Shekhinah. Where it wasn't that she became an aspect of the Shekhinah because she married Achashverosh. It was because she became an aspect of the Shekhinah that she got so close to the king, where she already held that kingdomship of like a queen. That was the act of Mordechai and Esther. Their job was trying to fight Haman, causing us to look down. They reached to the sky to reach as high as possible. And that is a big message for us. We're beginning a new year. In what sense? Like we mentioned many times, new year, that the first year on account is Nisan. Next month we're beginning a new year. In this new year, like in every new beginning, we set out our goals. We set out what we want to achieve. We set out where we want to be. And according to that, we direct ourselves in that manner to end up there. If we want to reach to a higher place, to reach to a more successful place, to reach to a more blessed place, to reach to a place where we are better than we are right now, we need to take those decisions and we need to visualize ourselves now. And if we visualize ourselves now, we will get as close as possible towards those goals. If there's one thing that we can understand from the order and the sequence of all the readings that we are doing, is that the way that we reach to success is always visualizing ourselves at the highest place possible and striving for there. And when we strive for there, that's when our being comes to play. We are Adam. Adam is a co-creator of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And being co-creators, we have the abilities to create things that maybe didn't exist. To make capabilities for ourselves that we didn't think we had. To find strength within ourselves that we didn't know that exists within us. That all comes from how we direct ourselves. We direct ourselves where we look. So if there's one message that we can learn from here, is to take this month and to understand that as long as we are looking towards the sky, we're looking very, very far, we'll reach to the highest level of success. When we start to look down, that's when we fall apart. We mentioned 10 minutes ago, it's not 10 minutes anymore, when we were upstairs, at Adar is Yosef. What is Yosef? Yosef, even when he was a child, he didn't see himself as a child growing up with one of his brothers. He always saw himself as what? He told his brothers what he thinks of himself, which was what? A king. He said, I'm going to be king one day and you're going to bow to me. The brothers hated him for it. But he knew where he was going to be. His eyes were locked at the top. And he achieved it. Imagine he didn't have that ambition from a young age. When he would sit in the bottom of the pit, he would think, I am at the bottom of the pit, here I am, where I need to survive. Yosef's outlook was always, even though I'm at the pit, I will end up on the throne. And that's what kept on giving him the strength and the koach to end up sitting on the throne. We have the ability to reach the highest places only if we keep our eyes locked there, and we understand that we need to renew our strength and to understand that we have the capabilities buried deep within us. And especially Abotai this year. In Abotai, I think that Shnat Shmita and Adar Bet and all these occurrences, especially what's happening right now in the world, it's all like a big wake-up call for all of us. In Abotai Shmita, what is Shmita? We spoke about this in the beginning of the year. Shmita was a year that all Klal Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael would quit. They would leave their jobs. Most of the jobs were in the fields. So they would leave their jobs, they would leave their fields, they would go home. In the entire year, they relied on what? On Hashem. They said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the one that brings Parnasa, not my hands. Throughout normal years, I do my effort by planting the seeds, but on the 7th year, I don't even need to do effort. You provide without my effort. In other words, Bnei Israel's entire year was a year where their heads were looking where? No? Looking up. That's where the parasha came from. The livelihood didn't come from the ground, it came from the sky. The whole mission of this year was always to keep our eyes looking up. And like what it said in many teachings, that the ones who were able to keep their heads up and not go to work and keep shmita as best as possible, for the 6 years that would follow, will be 6 years that will be more blessed than the previous 6 years. Wow. And the better that they were able to keep shmita, the more blessed that they were. Only if we could imagine how much the evil inclination fought them, installing within them fear, putting within them panic, putting within them thoughts of doubt, to do what? To look down, to go to the field, to say, how can I live without food? How can I live with, I'm an animal, my body is like an animal, I need to eat sustenance. We can imagine how much the evil inclination fought them throughout that whole year, just to do what? Just to look down. Just to make themselves busy with chaya sha'a, the needs of the hour. That was their test. And I see that Abotai happening today, here. In Abotai, there's so many problems in the world. So many distractions. It's not a little bit ironic? All the past 4 years I've been building up this monstrous problem to fall on Shemitah. It's not a coincidence that in the year of Shemitah, we have so many challenges that are causing everyone to do what? Causing everyone to look down and to be more busy with their work. Isn't that the will of the evil? To cause us to put our heads down and to look at what's in front of us? I see Abotai that in this year, in this generation, every year, every day is a generation at this time of the world. This year, Yitzhak is winning. Yitzhak is completely destroying Am Yisrael. There are distractions, there are wars, there is balagan, there are challenges in the Parnasa. There's so many things that are happening down here. But Shemitah, it is our duty and our job to keep our eyes up and not to keep our eyes down. So instead of cutting hours of limud Torah and to say study of Torah will be for later, now I have to focus on my work because there's a disaster in my work, and to feed to what the Yitzhak desires, we must do the exact opposite and look up and understand that exactly Yitzhak is doing these wars, doing this balagan, like what Amalek did, like what Paro did, like all the other evil force I think, like what the snake did. And understand, I'm not falling for it. I'm looking up. I'm not going to put more hours into my work. I'm going to put more hours towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because that's the essence of this year. And we see about that, so many people, they're doing less hours of study, less hours of that. And we ask them why. Rabbi Moshe, you don't know what a terrible year we had, or what a challenging year. He said, it's like you read a textbook of how to do what Yitzhak wants you to do. and you're following it step by step, without one misstep. Abotai, Yitzhak is winning. And we need to get up, we need to understand, you know what? Let the world flip over 10 times over. Let it change shapes, forms, let the map move from one side to the other. Nafahu. That shouldn't be a reason that we look down and we put aside our essence, our core is growth. And we believe that if we hold and we have growth and ambition of Torah, and we have ambition of study and have ambition of becoming better people, that ambition and that desire of growth will translate within our life. But it starts there. And if we're able to hold on and to strengthening that desire of becoming bigger and stronger and more present within that world of Akadosh Baruch Hu, the more Akadosh Baruch Hu will translate that ambition and that blessing and that growth within our life in all aspects. So Bezrat Hashem Rabotai, we're starting a new year. Nemirat O Tzadikim. May we merit have the koach to keep our eyes always looking where? Always looking up. And as long as our eyes are looking up and we're focused on growth and we're not focused on today or tomorrow, we're focused on Chaim Nitzchim, everlasting life, only then we will achieve and we will destroy and we will overcome all the evil and all what tries to pull us down. So Bezrat Hashem, may HaKadosh Baruch Hu give us that strength and may we succeed in all our endeavors. Amen. Bezrat Hashem.